Ho, 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 mate. Welcome once again to this version of Reality Podcast. Here and wherever you are, Liamo here once again. And this is something that I feel everyone wants to discuss, but's too afraid to discuss. Yeah, but it is definitely a well-discussed topic otherwise. How Christmas decorations seem to appear earlier and earlier each year. I bet the same people that put up those decorations early were the kids that ruined their family Christmas by opening their presents early. There's actually this guy who used to live in my parents' street who would enter a Christmas lights competition. Now, my take on that is that you see pretty lights. You just do like any gangster would do. You drive by slowly, roll your windows down, you do what you gotta do, which in this case isn't shooting up the joint, it's just having a look out, and then you get the hell out of there. These days, people will just park their car on the side of the street, not even really the side of the street, in some cases in the middle of the damn road, get out of their car, leave their door right open, look at the lights in the middle of the street, to get a bit of a look, to get a better look. I kid you not. And of course, if it's a crowded scene, you'd think that people would not bother getting out of their cars, but for some reason, it's like Santa gave us peak hour traffic for Christmas. Bumper to bumper just to get back to the house. What's worse is the people who are so arrogant that parked over the driveway as if to say, well, it's not like you have anywhere to be. It's not like you have to go anywhere. Yeah, where's the Christmas spirit? This is all stuff that's basically said when you ask them politely, excuse me, can you please not park over our driveway, please? So you ask them nicely, excuse me, good sir, your car appears to be mistakenly parked over our driveway. Could we trouble you to move it, please? And of course, they are kind enough to just walk the hell away. So then we ask again, no response. Suddenly, move your f***ing car! All of a sudden, without fail, they move their car, but oh well, you didn't have to be so rude. So they move their car. 5 minutes later, you guessed it, another car parks right in the same spot. So all of a sudden, you're playing the role of traffic officer to gain free access to your own driveway. A lot of the time, you get those people who pretend they don't understand English. But oddly enough, they've learned just enough to know what move it or I'm letting your tires down means. It's even more fun when it's bin day and the next morning, because there are people who will actually move your bin in order to park next to the curbs so they can open their door and get out of the car. Oh, what delight and disgust I had when I learnt that my mother had apparently put dog crap on the bin handles. Probably would have been a heads up if it told me that earlier, but then I guess I don't really ever touch the handles, and the people that were deliberately moving the bins, I mean, they wouldn't put the bin back in place. So the next morning, obviously, those bin people, if your bin isn't exactly perpendicular, just in the exact spot where it's supposed to be on the curb, they'll just drive on by and they don't care if you've got rubbish full up to the rim and out to everywhere else. It could be splayed out all over the street, we don't care. If that rubbish isn't contained, it's not in that specific little spot right there, just far enough from the curb and facing the right direction, they will not collect it. So when that fat lazy parent gets out and moves the bin just so they can open their door, so they can, I don't know, go show their child who's acting like a complete brat running all around the street and say, well, your reward for such abhorrently bad behavior and disobedience is to show you a bunch of lights, because that'll calm you down, that'll ease you up, that'll make you focus just a little bit more, right? Yeah. Well, I guess it's a good test to see if anyone has any, seizure prone, if they're prone to seizures rather. But hey, the whole thing is one hell of an experience. If you ever have to go through it, I recommend you don't. But if on the other side of things, there are prizes for winning a place or being a runner-up in these light competitions, and the top prize is $1,000, and there are people who pay thousands of dollars for these light setups, and I could only imagine thousands more on their electricity bill once they get it in after the next race. So you gotta wonder, what is the point? I mean, with today's electricity prices, not to mention how much you spend on the lights and plugs and everything, if you win, you get enough to maybe pay half the bill, and that's it. It's really an interesting scenario, and probably wondering, why am I so testy on the subject of, people parking in front of lights? It's like, what's the big issue? Why would you even care? I mean, surely it's not that big of a deal if someone parks over your driveway. Well, I mean, it's something that had been recurring for years. I mean, they've moved out since then. It's no longer an issue. But the greatest point at which it was an issue, because it started becoming an issue, it started becoming a hazard, there were cars that literally were crashing into each other down the street. There were kids that were running back and forth through the streets, so you almost run them over. There were people that just walked without looking, and you can nearly hit them with your car, and then of course they're going to blame you. People opening their doors, risking you taking out their door as you drive past. And even so much of a hazard that people were parking on both sides of the street, and they were parking so close in the middle that they turned the street into a one-way street. And then you had unqualified people directing traffic, which caused an even greater hazard, and you're like 2 car lengths away from your own home, and it's like, can I get through? And you got some old prick who's trying to play traffic cop and say, oh, you're going to have to go the other way. It's like, but I want to get to my home. Oh, no, you're going to have to go the other way because there's cars that way. Buses that go through and do the tours. So now you've got a bus full of 30 people that get out and go and looking at the lights, and the bus that parks across the driveway, put their hazards on and just stay there, which is illegal. And everyone knows it is, especially for a council bus to just park in the middle of nowhere. But that still doesn't answer the question, why am I such a Grinch about the lights? Well, maybe because I believe in a thing called respect for other people's property. For the fact that, you could say, oh, well, where's your Christmas spirit? It's like, well, my Christmas spirit lies with my father, who was dying of cancer in 2006. And the last Christmas that we spent with him, and, it was lung cancer, and he was having a hard time breathing and everything. And there were people that, we were trying to be polite and explain things. And, as soon as I say that, it should all become clear that all the aforementioned happened that time as well. I mean, it happened beforehand as well, but the worst point was when we needed that driveway clear in the just in case, because there were high points and there were low points. And the lowest of low points was when we had to drive him to the hospital because it was an emergency and he had to be stabilized. Otherwise, he would have died there at our house, right in that armchair in our home. And not to mention that he's freaking out because, he's, the illness that he had, the anxiety that he developed because he was sick, and also because people were parking over the driveway, getting his blood pressure up, and his blood pressure is already high as it is because of the fact that he had pneumonia from due to complications from the lung cancer that he had, and one lung was pretty much on the verge of collapsing, and the other lung was filling up with fluid, and he was almost drowning at one point in his own just the whole thing was just to say the least. It's inexcusable for a person to park in front of your driveway and obscure access and restrict access to your own home. But to do so when you have a sick family member and you try and explain it, not just to one person, to every person. And it gets to a point where it's like, right, F off. And then they have the audacity to say, well, how dare you? It's like, how dare I? This whole consideration, and the whole thing, like, where's your Christmas spirit? And they use that as an excuse to say, excuse my actions because it's Christmas, because it's times where people go, something happens, like maybe you don't have enough money to pay for something that you're about to buy. Maybe you're just a little short, and it's like, hey, it's Christmas. Hey, I'll let you have it this time. Thank you so much. It's a two-way street. And, it's ironic because at that time it was restricted to a one-way street. But hey, well, I gotta say that it is a very grey area because, council will pretty much turn a blind eye to it partially because, well, hey, it's Christmas. And they'll ignore the concerns of everyone else in the street because, hey, it's Christmas. And because, the lights and everything, they're so pretty. Whatever happened to the drive-by, where you drive by the house and look at the pretty lights, you just move on. Now people, like I said, got to get out of the car. You got to go stare at the lights. You got to go through and do all that. It's like this huge spectacle, and especially in a street that can't handle that much traffic because they were never designed for that. The buses that were crashing into poles and in the street and causing hazards. There were children nearly getting run over, parents nearly getting run over, and you had a person dying, and people couldn't care less because they wanted to go and see the pretty lights. So I guess that's the long short of it, to say, why am I not so much for that whole Christmas lights spectacle in its current form? Because the whole Christmas spirit thing has just basically been used in a manner of selective. It's very selective. It's very, where's your Christmas spirit is something that people used only. I've only ever heard that when people want to be excused from doing wrong, And sometimes you could say, okay, you could excuse people certain actions, and, you could even say, if they were polite about it, like, excuse me, you're over the driveway, can you move? Oh, terribly sorry, I'll move. But a lot of the people that do that, in fact, all the people that do that, were just ignorant, arrogant assholes. And that's the problem, because they're the ones that do that, and they're the ones that don't care, and they're the ones that are saying, where's your Christmas spirit? I say, shove your Christmas spirit up your ass. But on the other hand of things, Christmas is under attack, and it is under attack because we are afraid to basically celebrate it now. I, for one, don't mind the Christmas carols not being played, but then at the same time, that's just my personal preference in music. But when you talk about Christmas carols not being played because, well, certain people are offended by that music, well, let's just say that certain genres of music, I guess if I were to go down that route, I could say that every genre of music other than rock offends me. I don't like it. I don't want them to play. You know, my taste in music, the amount of music that I have in my playlist, only recently just clocked over 2,000 songs. There are probably millions of songs out there, and in the whole world, I only like 2,000 songs. You know? And you're going to complain about the ambience atmosphere that they're playing in a shopping centre because you're afraid that it will, you know, obscure your beliefs. It's like, well, hang on a second. It's their shopping centre. You know, you go in someone's car, you don't demand that they stop playing a song because it offends you. You know, unless, you know, it's a soundtrack of someone literally dubbing over and actually offending you. But it's something that's just, I find ridiculous. You know, I'm not religious myself. I'm not on either side. But personally, I say it's an argument that really... Uh-oh. You hear that siren? It's the Christmas police. Oh, wait. They're gone. Wait. Are they coming? I can hear a siren. I wonder if it could pick it up on the microphone. Sirens interrupting my podcast yet again. My goodness. But yes, carols, anthems, all those songs, you know, the Mariah Carey, you know, All I Want for Christmas Is You. Good God, man! Is there any... God... Ugh. Every Christmas! You know what? I'll negotiate that. If they don't want those... Yeah, if we're going to talk about, you know, not playing that, it's like, okay, you know, I will admit, and, you know, from an unbiased perspective, okay, happy, joyous, festive song, and good for Mariah Carey, because that helped launch her career. But, with all due respect, I'd personally prefer that it doesn't get played every single time that I open my ears and step outside, because you go to one shopping centre, oh, it's Mariah Carey. Go into a shop in a shopping centre, oh, it's Mariah Carey. Turn on the radio to a particular station that has that genre of music, oh, it's Mariah Carey. You know, it's basically being told the same thing again and again and again and again and again, and played it over and 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 over, and it's very annoying. So you can understand that it is not my personal ire towards Mariah Carey in that song. It's just the fact that, you know, if you were to put me in a round room and tell me that if I can find the corner in that round room, they'll stop torturing me with Mariah Carey, you know, I'd probably be tortured to death. But hey, you know, if we could get that negotiation down, it's like, alright, we'll stop playing the, you know, all the carols and Christmas anthems and that, as long as we all agree that we don't play Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You. But here's the thing as well, you know, the Christmas decorations as well, they want them gone. The Merry Christmas, they want that gone. I would have to say that, once again, no, not from a religious perspective, because, you know, not brought up in a religious background. Christmas, to me, is, I mean, in the beginning, it's about, or what it was supposed to be about, is family. And for a short time, it was about family, because to the limited degree that my family was involved in my life, you know, and I got to see them only on Christmas, you know. But that's another story. But still, you know, so it does have that sentimental meaning, because it's about family, because it's about giving, because it's about sharing, because it's about caring. It's supposed to be all about these things. And, you know, of course, because there's that connotation where it's like, you know, it's, you know, celebration of Jesus. That's from the Christian perspective. But because there is that element to it, we want to get rid of it altogether. We want to say, no Christmas, get rid of it. Don't say Merry Christmas, say Happy Holidays. You know, I believe that we shouldn't be offended by words. We shouldn't be offended by a holiday that is supposed to bring, you know, cheer and joy and happiness. And, you know, yeah, of course it's commercial greed. You know, one of the greatest, you know, biggest commercial ploys in the world where it's like you have to buy someone something for Christmas. You've got to buy them gifts. You've got to be, spending all your time with all your family, every single one of them. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. But at the same time, people that are personally offended, that want to take all of it away. It's like, well, if we keep our definition of Christmas to what it is and celebrate it in your own way, or not celebrate it at all, because there is that option, there is that choice, as long as no one's forcing one ideology down another's throat, I don't see why there should be a problem with keeping everything as it is. And I can understand certainly that we're having decorations and everything around, the Christmas trees, the carols, the Christmas lights, the fact that it's all branded Christmas this and Christmas that. It shouldn't matter if it doesn't truly affect your lifestyle. It really doesn't, unless you're forced to march out in the streets and forced to celebrate by putting up a Christmas tree and lights in your home. Then there really shouldn't be an issue that I see. But then again, once again, that's just me personally talking, and maybe it's something that I just shouldn't be talking about. Maybe I'm offending people right now. Maybe I'm being offensive. But what my personal opinion of it all is, that even those Christmas lights in the street, I didn't have a problem with them. But it's the way that everyone conducted themselves while those lights were on display that was the main issue. And the fact that they did those things without consideration of other people, that's the problem. And that's the problem on the other side too, is it's simply just a lack of consideration for anyone else. That's what it stems from. And I believe the true meaning of Christmas is that we are considerate for everyone else, and that we do try and be positive, and that if we're not going to give anything materialistic, then we give a crap about another person. We be empathetic towards them. We be impartial to everyone, and we consider everyone's feelings, at least for one day a year, that we are good and kind to everyone else. Then that should be what Christmas is all about. Nothing else. Just love, positivity, being good to one another. That's it. That's all it should be. That's all that should be advertised. Sure. And then people interpret it in their own way, as long as they're not interpreting that as some message from Satan to go on some sort of killing spree, because, the red sleigh, I've got to slay people because, red and slay, get it? Yeah? No? Well, look it up. Wikipedia is probably right next to you right now. But hey, that's just it from me with regards to all that Christmas talk, Christmas lights, Christmas this, Christmas that. Who gives a Christmas crap? It's Christmas. Let's just celebrate in our own way, or don't celebrate. Let's just move on. That's what I say. Just live your life the way you want to live it, and try not to force your beliefs onto another person, and then there's not a problem, And I believe that in time that perhaps we will all, become a lot more peaceful during this time, and the debate and argument will become more silent as we come to a mutual agreement. And maybe if everyone listens to what I'm saying right now, maybe that's the solution. Or maybe I'm just way off. Who knows? Maybe I just need to stop talking about it right now. But another Christmas interesting topic is that there are a lot of organizations these days that are actually insisting and in some ways contractually obligating and forcing people to work on Christmas and New Year's. So the 25th of December and the 1st of January, there are actually organizations, more and more now, that are insisting that people work on those days. There are people that voluntarily do it, and in some cases it's the drawing of the straw, obviously in some instances when, obviously you're in a form of service like ambulatory, fire and rescue, police, then obviously there has to be, a certain number of people to cover certain shifts, because that's sort of a job which, in those areas, in those fields where it's like, well, that's just something you got to do. And now we've got restaurants and other places which, people work to cover shifts with regards to other people, which, they open their restaurants and they have, buffet feasts, all you can eat for, Christmas roast dinners and that sort of thing. So that means that they're essentially serving other families who have, paid money to eat there on Christmas Day, especially. New Year's, I guess, probably a little different, but especially on Christmas, when, like I mentioned before, it's about family, it's about togetherness, and we've got people that are now essentially told, nah, we need someone to work Christmas, and it's going to be an interesting scenario that, people are probably forced to agree upon those terms, and, certain people who don't have the so-called, the family with the children are probably given the short end of the stick and said, well, you're going to have to work. Seems a little unfair that on days like that where it's supposed to be a family holiday, that's effectively what it is, the family holiday that gives you one day to spend with your entire family, giving, sharing, caring, and it's like, well, you're going to have to give share and care to this family over here because they paid good money to be here and do whatever they're doing. Maybe it's an activity that people conduct on a Christmas Day. And interesting as well, because even recently, entertainment spectacles, entertainment organizations that are now in that mix, that are going in and saying, hey, we're doing a Christmas special, a New Year's special, it's going to be live, so it's actually going to be broadcast on the day. It's like, well, you can understand, like, emergency services, something you can't get away from, but you could easily rotate the shifts over, so at least that, it's maybe, maybe one, so it's like, well, how long is it? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. So maybe 1/6 of the day, so maybe 4-hour shift for one person and then shift over to the next person, next person, next person, next person. If you had like a 6-shift turnover with the emergency services, then you could say absolutely 100%. But even then, it's like, it's hard to argue. Maybe you could say with these other professions, these other jobs, these other duties, just a quick 4-hour shift and then they can go home to their family. Then you could maybe say maybe, but it's really just a touchy area. But then when you've got, spectacle, entertainment happening, and it's like, well, you're going to have to work on the holiday. It's like, well, if it's a television special, if it's a show, if it's, something that could be taped and aired, you could do it any other day, any other time. You don't have to do it live. But yet, some reason they choose to do it live and have them there on that day, and then at the same time expect there to be such a turnout that would justify and rationalize having an event on Christmas or even New Year's. New Year's, maybe you could understand. New Year's, obviously, a bit of a different story when you talk about, the celebration, fireworks and everything else. But when you're talking about something where you're specifically forced to give up without an option, without a choice, your night and your rights, essentially, I just feel that is wrong, and that people need to take a step back and remember that these are human beings. At the end of the day, they deserve the right to at least have that day like everyone else, and that should certainly come under fair and equal treatment for all. But for some reason, good tidings we bring, screw everyone, do what you gotta do, that's your thing. We wish everyone else a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, but as for you, go and serve them a beer. Ha 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 ha. See that? Just turned it into a rhyme, but I'm going to stop now. But it's something like, you type it in online, and, I'll just type it in randomly right now. So live Christmas Day. So you got live Christmas Day parade, live Christmas Day mass. Basically, you've got parade, you've got mass, you've got those things which people volunteer to do, and that's okay. You could say absolutely sure, but there are things that people are running, and with all due respect, I mean, I come across, this is not me bagging on them or dragging them in the dirt, but Spectacle WWE actually has just recently done this, where they have gone and said that they're going to have people, they're going to have a live Christmas Day special, and even though the event, the wrestling only goes for it's 3 hours for when does Christmas Day? Yeah, because it would be their television show Raw, which means it fall on a Monday. Christmas Day this year is on a Monday, 25th. And I just, it's like, what the hell? I mean, because even though they air it for 3 hours, it's bigger than that. It's basically a whole day you've got to commit yourself to, because it is a live event. It's an event. And they're performers, so they can't just rock up and then leave. It's like any physical performance where you've got to warm up, you've got to stretch, you've got to, you've got to set up, you've got to, get all the, electronics and the stadium ready. It's not just going to be a couple of hours. It's going to be the entire day. There's probably going to be no opportunity for them to go anywhere or do anything else. They're stuck there for Christmas. And maybe this is going to be just a one-time thing, but then anything that's a one-time thing, like for example, weekend operating hours in shopping centres, it was started with Saturday, Sunday there was to be no trading, but then in a lot of places they started legalising Sunday operating hours and even nighttime shopping on the weekends, and now people also in that vein are forced to work on those days. And even like I said, shopping centres, some of them are actually open on Christmas Day. Some of them are actually open on New Year's Day. And you could say to a degree, oh well, okay, New Year's Day, maybe you could get away with that because it's the first day of the year. But then at the same time, it's like it's a public holiday, people are recovering from party, it should be optional. But it's not. People are being made to work, and it's obligatory, it's compulsory. If they don't, then they now are at risk of losing their job, and it's now an accepted norm where it's like, well, what the hell? The rights of people are becoming diminished, and of course, first world problems here, I know, but still, the fact that it becomes a problem at all for us means it distracts us from real problems that are occurring, Christmas, giving and sharing and caring, where we should be giving, sharing, caring to other people in need instead of worrying about ourselves. But then when you basically cloud the day with things like that, then we're focusing only on ourselves, whether we want to or not. We only have to complain about ourselves, whether we want to complain or not, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are put to, we're put through the, wood chipper in a sense. I guess me personally would say, oh well, have you ever been made to work on Christmas Day or New Year's Day? Well, no, but also I've never been in an industry where I have had to, or where I was made to, so I've been fortunate. So why am I talking? Well, simple. Call me an advocate. Call me a voice for those that say, because I do know people that have had to work those holidays, and maybe they didn't mind because they made that arrangement, but then there are some that I do know that were made to work on that day in industries, in services, in places where it wasn't necessary for them to do so. And also, especially when we talk about the fact that, especially in Australia, where the rights of workers are being limited because penalty rates and, basically additional pay that would be given on public holidays in certain fields of work and industries now have essentially been wiped. So now a person would be working, in hospitality, perhaps, for example, serving food to other people, and get no more money being away from their family and putting that extra time and effort in, being away from their family to serve another person's family food and whatever else they need on that day, or whatever they want, rather. And they only get what they would ever get, with regards to pay. And it's just not fair. And that's why I'm basically, speaking up about this, because it is something that affects us all. Because when you consider the fact that we got people who are working their asses off day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, and then the incentive is taken away from them. The reward is not there. And it's basically a situation where you're not even given a choice. Where are the morals and ethics? And then from the other matter of perspective, from the actual worker themselves, then where's their motivation to do the best that they can do at their job? Because then it's like, well, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm just going to get the same anyway, I'm going to get treated the same anyway, then I'm just replaceable. What's the point of working any harder than I am right now? What's the point of doing any more than I'm doing right now? And that's a big problem, because then nothing advances as much as it should. Then everyone starts, progress halts. Our lives as we know it begins to slow down, and we don't get things done, and the general attitude changes, and it affects everyone around them. I mean, hell, I'm sure customer service was once a very jubilant and very happy industry, until one day someone just gave up hope and decided, you know what, it's customer support, it's customer service, but I'm not going to help you anymore, because what's the point? Because they're getting disrespected, they're getting poorly treated, and if they get fired, well then, okay, they'll just get replaced with someone else, and they'll just go somewhere else, and they'll just get treated the same anyway. It doesn't matter, it doesn't make a difference. Maybe they'll go somewhere else and get treated better, or maybe it's just all the same everywhere. It's still not a good way of thought, it's not a good trade of thought. But yeah, I guess it's pretty clear right there. I don't know if cinemas open on Christmas Day. I think they were talking about it at one point. Cinemas open on Christmas Day. And, well, there are some, but I think that there are limited locations, and they are only from a certain time onwards. Which, I guess you could say, well, at least there's been some form of negotiation there. But still at the same time, you kind of think to yourself, do you really need to open on Christmas Day? I mean, isn't that something where if you want to watch a movie, that you just grab a DVD or Blu-ray or, whatever, and just whack it into your player and watch it at home? Because then you're there with your family. You don't need to go out somewhere else and take someone away from their family just so they can run that projector and serve you popcorn and rip your ticket stub and make sure that you're not taking food or drink into a freaking cinema if you're uptight pricks. I guess I'm going off tangent there. Hey, but, hey, don't blame me. Don't blame me. It's them. They made me this way. But, yeah, you get my point. If you're still listening, of course, you understand what I'm talking about. Is that there are certain things that you just don't need to do it. And, what do you stand to gain? Those organizations are going to get more money from it. What are the people who work for them, are right underneath them? What do they stand to gain from it? Nothing. Basically, it's the opposite of what Christmas is supposed to be. Instead of giving, you're taking. It goes against the whole thing. If there's one thing about Christmas above all else, it's about giving, sharing, caring. It's not about, well, you have to give and you have to care and you have to share, but I don't. it's a two-way street, and you can't always justify things by saying, well, you know what, I am just going to do what I'm going to do, and you will do what you do, but I'm going to do it at a higher rate of pay than you, and I'm not going to actually work on that day, but you're going to work on that day, and I'm going to treat you exactly the same as I did before, an empty gesture thank you, and that'll be it. And that's also one of the biggest problems that a lot of industries having, even outside of Christmas Day, where it's like they'll thank you when you do a job for them cheaper than they could have done it themselves, and you get no reward, no incentive, and it's an empty gesture thank you. It's more like thanks, and then that's it. It's empty gesture thank you, empty handed thank you, where it's like there's really no meaning behind it. It's empty gesture, like I said. But hey, I'm prattling on perhaps, because Christmas, and it's a topic that's relevant. It's all relevant, all of it, all the good tidings and the cheers and everything in between. But I do have a fun-filled saying that I always say around Christmas time, just to be on the joke side of things, because as a comedian, it's what I do. I say, instead of Merry Christmas, to be neutral in this, I will say, Happy Present Day to everyone. Because perhaps that's what it's really all about to people, is the presents. It's not about family, it's not about friends, it's not about togetherness, it's about the commercialism, it's about presents. So, happy present day, and congratulations to all the nice people who were awarded gifts this year, and the naughty people who were awarded for their outstanding talents with even better gifts. That is a great point to bring up. Is there anyone actually monitoring that naughty list? Because having worked with children, I know plenty of children who have been misbehaving, and now I will say it, little brats, for the majority of the year, and especially leading up to Christmas, and parents who don't, unfortunately do not have very good parenting skills, just not strict, do not stick to their guns. But ultimately, the message that is sent that's to all these children is that, well, if you're naughty, you don't get gifts. If you're good, you get what you asked for at Christmas. Is anyone monitoring that? Is anyone policing that? Like, if there are naughty children, I do not know of anyone truly who has stuck to that and has said, right, that's it, except maybe one parent, but then it didn't really matter so much because the kids had already snuck and found their presents and opened them early. So then, that's it, cancelling Christmas. But it's like, well, that's great because your kids just already found your presents and opened them, and you let them have them. So, cancel Christmas. It's like, well, they don't care. They just got their presents anyway. To them, that's all it's about. And to the children that misbehave, that do not do what they are supposed to do for their parents, that do not understand that there are rules for reasons, that perhaps, for example, like I said before, like in the beginning with the Christmas lights, riding out in front of cars in the street could get you hurt. You could get run over, and there would be consequences to that. If you yell and scream and call people names and hit other kids, or you break things, you do or say things that may hurt another person, that may affect another person negatively, and there's no reinforcement or discipline to correct that behavior, and your only answer is, well, you know what, it's just, I just don't have the energy to discipline them all the time, so someone else is going to have to do it for me. And then they do, in the form of perhaps disciplinary, in the form of a teacher or another adult, or maybe even an officer of the law, and you don't agree with their decision to discipline your children and say, how dare you, that's my child you're dealing with there, and then you effectively reinforce the bad behavior and say that it was okay to begin with. But the biggest thing is that Christmas is about being good. And, there is that ultimate scare that has been there for a long time. Good old Santa. He knows when you're sleeping, knows when you're awake, blah, 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 blah. Knows when you're being out of good, so be good for goodness sake. And people go, and they're not. And they're still getting toys. Better toys than anyone else. Hi. Better toys than anyone else. But then it's like, well, you know what? It's their family. It's their choice. Stay out of it. How dare you interfere? I truly believe that there is a compromise in between where it's like, you can still have Christmas. You can still have the present. You can still do that. And if your child is naughty at Christmas, you don't have to cancel Christmas, and you don't have to withhold, take their present away and just never give it to them. But there is that thing where you can say, right, Santa told me that if you don't behave yourself, that, until you do, you don't get your present. It's here, he delivered it, but because you're naughty, he has told me that I'm not to give it to you unless you're good. And that if you're too naughty, then he may take it back, or he may not give you a present next time. And I've never not been in fear of that. Particularly my first big present at Christmas, 1994, I believe. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The SNES was out. It was the brand new console at the time, and I wanted it. It was a cool console. Ever since I saw it, ever since I was introduced to it, it was awesome. And I had to work hard to get it. I had to behave. I had to be good. And I was, I had that fear where it's like, if I'm not good, I won't get it. And there was reinforcement of that from parents and teachers alike. And there was a coordination there where it's like, if I was wrong, if I was naughty, then basically there was a little, like a little sheet where it's like if I did something wrong, then would mark like a warning on it, and that it would be sent to Santa. And it's like, I got one. And, I was like 5 at the time. And I got one warning, only one. But I basically, it was like I was hostage negotiation. Like I may as well have been holding a gun to someone's head and, threatening to fire. It's like, please, no, no, please, no, give me a warning. But, it worked. And now I'm a messed up individual. But that's beyond the point. But hey, but at the same time, it's that thing where it's like, you explain it to your children and they will understand, because they are learning, they are growing, and if you treat them with respect and you reinforce the proper behavior, and don't get lazy with your duties as a parent, then there will never be a problem. But then on the other side of things, the whole appreciation of what you get and what you receive is something that, passed over me quite some time ago, and what a better time to discuss it very quickly than right now. There was one parent, and perhaps not the only one, but one in particular, that gained infamy on social media and through news platforms for actually, accused of being abusive to her children, because she bought her children 300 Christmas presents in 1 year of Christmas. So, what the hell? Like, first of all, where the hell did you get that amount of money? But then it's like, oh, well, none of our business. But at the same time, somehow, because she posted it, if you search for it online, you'll find it. But I don't want to give her any info. I don't want to mention her name. I don't want to give her any more fame or fortune that she's probably gotten from this. But I will mention the fact that this individual bought a lot of gifts, spent a lot of money, and essentially did it to go overboard, to essentially, give her children, a certain portion of presents. So it was like 300 presents or so. And my goodness. I mean, I'd say maybe 2 presents, one from the mother, one from the father, maybe 3 presents, one from the mother, one from the father, or one from or perhaps 2 from both the parents, one from the father, one from the mother, and one from Santa, or just one from your parents and one from Santa. So 2 or 3 presents, that should be all, because it's about appreciating what you have above everything else. And to be given that many sorry, it's just like, my goodness. How do you learn to appreciate something when you're given so much? And that's basically, there's no equal footing. Like, they're being given so much, but they're giving nothing in return. And I believe that this parent in question, not the only one, but the kind of parent that tries to top it every year, there's got to be a point where it's like, one year they might not be able to do that, or the children grow up and they become entitled and spoiled, and they expect to be given everything. They appreciate nothing. They don't earn anything in life, and they take, but they don't give. That's a problem. But I really just believe, on the one hand, saying that, people were saying that, that's abusive to the children. I truly think that it's not technically abuse. You can't say someone who buys them that much. I'd say it's not abuse. It is most definitely bad parenting. So that's where I guess you draw the line. Abusive? Not quite. But it is definitely poor parenting. It's not teaching your children any appreciation, because to expect, they'll unless they have some form of understanding, but it's just way too much, And then what do you gain from that many presents? Let's say that they're all toys. All of them. Are they going to play with all of them? They can't possibly. If there's like 100 presents for each individual child, like if there were 3 kids and each one of them got 100 each, they're going to play with all 100 of those toys. Maybe, what if they were books? Are they going to read them all?
You can win at Coles.
Hey. Friggin' technical difficulties with pop-up ads. I don't need any strikes or claims of copyright because your ad is popping up through my feed. Ass. My goodness. Yes, but it's pretty simple, It's about being just... Common sense should dictate that, maybe, if it's like 100 books for someone, and maybe they'll read them over time, but then it's like, okay, well then, what's the purpose of that? What is it all for? And what do you expect to get out of this? Is it so you can get love and affection from your children? Because if you're buying them that love and affection, you're going to find that eventually, as the money runs out, the love and affection dies with it. It fades away, and it's not something that you truly want, especially at a time like Christmas, when it's all about giving, sharing and caring and loving, and you turn it all into basically a competition to see how many presents you can buy your child. I know there are situations where, not 300 presents, but parents that have bought their children an exuberant amount of presents, just a ridiculous haul of gifts. And I know for a fact that I've seen these children with these gifts. 100% of them are always, when they're just basically given gifts all the time, rewarded all the time, regardless of their behavior or anything, they appreciate nothing. You're given everything, you appreciate nothing. You have nothing, you learn to appreciate everything. You earn what you are given in life. And if you haven't earned it, then it skews your view of reality. It does no favors for you. And even though it is not abusive as a parent to do that, it can lead perhaps to your children becoming abusive in different ways, acting out when they don't get what they want in life. They could be the one that, wants to see the manager every time they don't get exactly what they wanted, even though, it's exactly as it should be according to whatever guideline, whatever menu, whatever it happens to be. Maybe they become abusive to their partner. It's like, just become spoiled brats in the rest of their life. They expect things to be given. Maybe they're the kind of people that take from the government, get on dole bludges and, expect to go find work and they just don't ever. Maybe they go get a loan and just never repay it, and they're the kind of person that then just goes into hiding for the rest of their life, goes and declares bankruptcy whenever it suits them so that they never have to pay anything back, etc., etc. But I think that's about enough time, enough ranting or raving or whatever you want to call it, discussing, debating. It is time for me to pull the plug on this podcast for the moment and say thank you all for listening yet again. Subscribe for more, and by all means check out my YouTube channel. Follow me on Facebook to see where I will be performing next in certain venues of stand-up comedy and other happenings. In the meantime, my name is Liam, and I will see you guys next time.